She never imagined that Robert, her boyfriend of 7 years from a wealthy family, would take back the diamond ring after proposing to return it for a refund, complain about the $10 filing fee when they were supposed to get married legally, only to turn around and get married legally, and hold a lavish engagement party with Victoria, his childhood friend. Upon hearing the news, her grandmother suffered a sudden heart attack. Sarah knelt and apologized to Robert, begging him to return the salary she had saved with him for years to pay for her grandmother's surgery, but he cruelly humiliated and drove her away. Finally, her grandmother passed away resentfully amidst the fireworks on New Year's Eve, leaving her alone to face everything during the holiday season. After handling her grandmother's funeral arrangements, filled with exhaustion and resolve, she decided to leave. But when she went home to retrieve her passport, Robert was oblivious to her despair, thinking she was just sulking. For the first time, he generously promised, "All right, what could be so serious about your grandmother? At worst, I'll pay for a lavish wedding for you, let her have a taste of vanity." But he didn't know that from the moment her grandmother drew her last breath, she no longer wanted to marry him. As I picked up my passport, a hand with distinct joints snatched it away. "What are you looking for so intently that you didn't even notice I was back?" Robert, my boyfriend, had just returned from outside, his nose tip red from the cold. Noticing it was my passport, his slightly raised lips flattened, and his sword-like eyebrows furrowed. "What do you need your passport for? Planning to go abroad? Didn't I tell you Victoria's family is pressing hard? Getting married, legally, to her is just to placate her family. We'll quietly get a divorce after a while." I didn't even look up, pulling the passport back with a cold expression. He rubbed his icy fingertips. In the past, whenever he read, and I would caringly ask if he was cold, prepare hand warmers and hot tea for him. But today I was unusually distant. He reached out and cupped my face, the cold air hitting me, forcing me to meet his gaze. "Sarah, aren't you being overly jealous? Think about all the high society people who were watching. If this got to my dad, neither of us would be off the hook." I gave a self-mocking laugh. To him, I was just a casual diversion, not meant for public display. I pushed his hand away, but he clung to me again. His cold hand lifted my chin, examining the small scratches on my cheek, saying with feigned concern, "Are those security guards tired of living? They turned my Sarah into a little calico cat. I'll dock all their pay later." Here we go again. No matter how angry I was before, he would always manage to sweet talk and eventually I'd forgive him. Not this time. 7 days ago at the engagement party, the security guards, at Robert's instruction, pushed me to the ground when they threw me out of the hotel. A wild hen trying to be a phoenix. Mr. Hua and Ms. Victoria are a match made in heaven. I've seen plenty of gold diggers like you. Passers-by pointed and whispered, mocking me for having hands and feet but acting like a beggar, kneeling to a man for money. I had completely lost face. Coming back to my senses, Robert saw I was still unhappy and finally resorted to his ultimate weapon. He brought over a box of supplements from the doorway. "These are for grandmother. Don't try to fool me again with her surgery to get my attention, it's pathetic." My grandmother, who I depended on, had wanted to witness me get married, legally, to Robert herself, to offer her blessings right away. But what she saw was Robert get married, legally, to another woman. She collapsed on the spot. The doctor told me that $50,000 for surgery was all she needed to have a chance at survival. On New Year's Eve, I humbled myself, begging people for money. Either my calls were rejected outright, or I was cursed for being bad luck. Amidst the fireworks, grandmother closed her eyes with regret, leaving me alone. Thinking of grandmother's pale face, my heart twisted in pain, and my eyes instantly turned red. I didn't take the box of supplements, just said coldly, "Robert, we break up." Before I could finish those words, Robert interrupted me. "All right, you've been spending time with grandmother for the holidays, probably don't have much cash on hand, right?" He moved his fingers and transfer moneyed $200 to me. "Consider this money for grandmother's nutritional supplements. No need for an IOU, loan slip." It was laughable. He feared I was a gold digger, demanding I hand over my entire salary, and he would approve my allowance. Every time he transferred moneyed money to me, he required me to write an IOU, loan slip. After dating for 7 years, I actually owed Robert a pile of debt. Before, I just thought his family owned a company and he was sensitive about money, so I dotingly indulged his requests. But his frugality was only directed at me. He could spend a fortune on a diamond necklace for Victoria, buy her a villa without batting an eye, making headlines every time. Where the money is, that's where the love is. Snapping back to reality, I immediately moneyed the $200 back, saying coldly, "No need. I don't want it." Robert finally looked at me seriously, as if remembering something, and said helplessly, "Think it's too little? I promise you, we'll have a wedding, okay? Let your grandmother have her moment of vanity too. You people are all the same." Vanity. The word was truly grating, but I had endured it for 7 years. I just wanted a normal life of exchanging gifts and going shopping like a regular couple. But he would accuse me of vanity and comparison, saying I coveted his family's money. No need for a wedding. We're not husband and wife. Robert's handsome face completely fell, showing the familiar look of anger. Just then, was a knock at the door. Robert glared at me and turned to open it. The next second, I heard his voice suddenly rise. "Why are you here?" I turned my head and saw Victoria standing at the door, wearing a matching down jacket with Robert. She playfully hit Robert's chest and laughed heartily. "Prince, my girlfriends are here today and want to see what Robert looks like. Stay with me for another day, okay?" Stepping past Robert, she looked at me, blinking her innocent big eyes provocatively. "Sarah, you won't be angry, right? You weren't angry the other day. Robert and I are just friends, you know." As she spoke, she deliberately shivered and intertwined her fingers with Robert's, showing off the matching wedding rings on their hands. Robert's eyes were full of indulgence, and he skillfully tucked her hand into his pocket to warm it. Why would she be angry? "Don't worry, I'll definitely do it for you." Saying this, Robert picked up his car keys and turned to leave. After taking 2 steps, he seemed to remember me, releasing Victoria's hand, stepping forward, cupping my face, and kissing the corner of my lips. "Don't worry, this is the last time. I'll be with you every day from now on." "But Robert, there is no from now on for us." I fiercely wiped my lips, watching them playfully walk away. Then I turned and picked up the resignation letter I had already prepared on the table. On the 7th day after the holiday season, colleagues were back at the workplace/office. Seeing me arrive late, they covered their mouths and giggled knowingly. "Sarah actually dares to come to the company? She's gone crazy wanting money. She caused a scene at Mr. Hua's engagement party, knelt and apologized begging him for money. She has no shame. She usually acts so high and mighty, thinking she's above everyone because she's been with Mr. Hua for 7 or 8 years. My dog isn't that fawning when begging for food. Serves her right." Ignoring the mockery, I walked into the HR department with a poker face. The HR department employee pouted and said coldly, "I've already submitted your application. Once Mr. Hua approves it, you can pack your things and leave. In your situation, we won't be providing any compensation." I nodded, said nothing, and turned to leave the company. The sun was setting. The holiday season had just ended, and the streets were filled with couples or families of 3. I, however, was all alone. A huge sense of loneliness flooded my heart. My only relative, the career I had worked hard for years, and my lover all were gone. I slowly walked the path I had taken for 7 years, back and forth between home and the workplace/office. Memories flooded back. When I was 7, my parents died in a car accident, and the settlement money was entirely divided among my greedy relatives. Only my grandmother and I were left, depending on each other. Later, by chance, my grandmother rescued Robert, who had fallen off a cliff while traveling in a mountain village, and treated him like her own grandson. From then on, Robert and I crossed paths. At that time, I was just a college student, working several jobs to make ends meet. It was Robert who volunteered to visit my grandmother for me, often sending me updates about her. Whenever I felt I couldn't go on, Robert would hold me when I broke down and softly comfort me, saying he would always be there for me, never leaving. He truly loved me back then, wanting to be with me all the time. Even when I dressed simply, he would interlock his fingers with mine and proudly introduce me to everyone. "This is my girlfriend, isn't she beautiful? She's the best girlfriend in the world." But gradually, he started looking at me with suspicion, fearing I was after his family's fortune. He demanded I voluntarily hand over all my salary for him to manage. Later, his possessiveness grew stronger. If I just asked for $5 to buy a cup of milk tea, he would become suspicious. It wasn't until 3 months ago, the day Victoria returned to the country, that he happily bought her a priceless gem ring and spent $5 million to put up 7 words on a large billboard throughout the city: "Victoria, welcome back." That day was the first time he didn't come home all night. When I took the police to find him, he was drunk, red-eyed, clutching Victoria's arm and asking, "When we were 5, playing house, you said you were the princess and I was the prince, and that you would marry me. Why did you leave?" I felt chilled to the bone. After he sobered up, I had a huge argument with him, questioning who was truly in his heart. But he said I was overthinking, stating the obvious: if Victoria hadn't left, I would never have had the chance to be with him. It wasn't until the day Victoria posted a message on her social media about wanting to get married that Robert finally ended the silent treatment and knelt and apologized, asking if I would marry him. It's laughable that I was overjoyed, thinking he had finally chosen me, and tearfully agreed. This absurd relationship was finally coming to an end. Snapping back, I realized I had unknowingly walked very, very far. In the distance, I heard a commotion. Robert, you can't back out of truth or dare. Victoria can't wait. Outside a nearby club, Robert was surrounded by a group of people, tightly holding Victoria's hand, shouting, Robert, only love Victoria. He shouted it 3 times, his voice growing louder and more resolute, drawing the attention of passers-by on the entire street. The man, usually so unruly, had his ears red. Victoria naturally linked her arm with his, smiling sweetly. The crowd cheered, the mood is just right, why don't you two kiss? Robert seemed slightly taken aback. Victoria quickly smoothed things over. Don't go too far, Robert is sensitive/easily embarrassed. Before she finished, Robert cupped her face and leaned down for a deep kiss. It was a brief touch. Robert didn't close his eyes, looking intently at Victoria, as if trying to imprint her in his memory, his face full of happiness and contentment. It seemed that just one kiss was enough. The next second, afraid Victoria might misunderstand, his ears turned red, and he feigned composure. I lost my balance just now. Before Victoria could say anything, he hurried, it's late, we should go home, or my dad will give me family punishment. The most precious thing in the world is a rake changes his ways. Bit of sincerity. Love is the hand that wants to touch but is pulled back. I was only about 10 meters away from him. The cold wind blew on me, turning my already shattered heart into fine dust again. Robert was walking with his head down and bumped right into me. He looked up, saw my face, and his pupils constricted. Sorry. I cut him off. It's okay. Then I turned and walked away, opening a phone app to call a cab. Behind me, I heard confused questions from the crowd. This person looks familiar. Robert, isn't that the gold digger who knelt and apologized for money at your engagement? She didn't try to steal your money, did she? You should check. Robert remained silent about their slanders against me. After I got home, I took out my phone to pay for the ride. On my phone, the ticketing app popped up a message. Your rebooked overseas flight from Coastwood to Houston is confirmed and will depart tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Please plan accordingly. I sent a screenshot to the HR department at the major corporation abroad I was in contact with. Before I could say anything, the HR department employee excitedly replied, Sarah, I'm eagerly awaiting your arrival tomorrow. My expression softened. I didn't have love, but I could pursue my career. Then I picked up the suitcase/luggage I had already packed and walked out, not wanting to stay in that house for another second. But I ran right into Robert. He frowned, slammed the door shut, and asked in a deep voice, Sarah, where are you going? Victoria, fall. Lowing behind him, said insincerely, Sarah, please don't misunderstand. Robert and I are just good friends, I just needed him to show up for me. Please don't argue with him because of me and threaten to leave home. I couldn't be bothered to listen anymore and said flatly, Robert, let's break up. Robert was about to call me overly jealous, but he paused for a second at my words, then his eyes widened, and he blurted out, break up? Just because Victoria and I were just playing along, you want to break up? Sarah, do you still want a wedding? In his mind, he probably thought I was madly in love with him and was using the wedding as a threat. In the past, I really would have humbled myself and begged him to be with me forever. Now, I just gave a sarcastic smile. Robert, we have nothing to do with each other. What wedding? Nothing to do with each other? A layer of frost covered Robert's face, and his tone was chillingly cold. That's not what you said a month ago when you accepted my proposal. You said your lifelong dream was to marry me, and the diamond ring. Saying this, he frowned and started searching through the house, wanting to find that ring to prove me wrong. I said lightly, no need to look. You took that ring back, got a $10,000 refund, and then bought Victoria a hair tie as a gift. As I said this, I suddenly felt incredibly ironic. In 7 years of dating, I had never received anything from him. The gifts I bought him by saving money, he thought were cheap and sold secondhand. And the only diamond ring he ever gave me, he took back after proposing, saying there was no need for extravagance, and it was better to save the money for the wedding. Robert's eyelashes trembled slightly, and his gaze scanned the house. He insisted stubbornly, no ring, but you bought me. I bought you. He couldn't continue, and his face looked a bit bad. Because he realized that in this house, he couldn't find a single thing to prove that we were a couple. Victor. I gloated and fanned the flames. Okay, Sarah, stop making a fuss. You use Robert's money for everything, so you should be more understanding and share his worries. Robert is taking over the company at a critical time, don't make trouble. That only emboldened Robert. He crossed his arms and sneered. Victoria is right, Sarah, stop being so short-sighted. Once I inherit the company, I can buy you anything. Now, put down your suitcase/luggage obediently, or don't blame me for cutting off your living expenses. I released my hand from the suitcase/luggage, turned around, and carried out a box of IOUs, loan slips. I said indifferently, Robert, in these 7 years, you gave me $200 a month for living expenses, and for other extra expenses, you made me write 500 IOUs, loan slips, totaling $10,000. Grandmother's surgery fees and treatment fees over the years totaled $150,000. I kept my salary card with you. 7 years of salary is at least $500,000. Now, please return the remaining $340,000 to me. Robert was so angry he overturned the box in my hands. Countless IOUs, loan slips, fluttered down like snowflakes. Sarah, I was with you for 7 years, and in your heart, that meager $340,000 is more important. How shallow you are. Robert's tone of disgust and contempt made my voice rough. Robert, this money is all my hard-earned labor. Unexpectedly, he instantly flew into a rage, kicking the coffee table with a loud crash. Money, 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 Sarah, what else is in your heart besides money? Why can't you be like Victoria, not caring about fame or fortune, innocent and easygoing? She's never asked me for anything. My dad was right. Dating poor people like you is a waste of time. We're not from the same social class. Your labor? Are you kidding me? Without me, you'd be starving. This is the salary I gave you. I gave a self-mocking smile. Victoria didn't fight or scheme because she had everything. She just had to stand there, do nothing, and Robert would hand over everything good, including his sincerity, to her. Seeing my silence, Robert said fiercely, Fine, Sarah, take the money back. I'll never keep it for you again. The next second, Robert forcefully threw the debit card at my face. The edge of the card grazed my cheek. I lightly wiped it, and my hand was covered in red. Robert instantly panicked, reaching out to touch my cheek, muttering, Sarah, are you okay? I gave a self-mocking smile and pushed his hand away. Looking at the panic in his eyes, I said in a desolate tone, Robert, haven't you gotten tired of this game of Prince and Cinderella playing house? But I don't want to play anymore. I picked up the debit card, stood up, and grabbed my suitcase/luggage. Then, I walked over the IOUs, loan slips, that represented the last connection between Robert and me. Robert looked somewhat lost. Seeing my hand on the doorknob, he snapped back to reality and stopped me. Sarah, don't be angry. Arguments are like this. I said things I didn't mean. I twisted the doorknob, walked out, and didn't look back. When I got to the hotel front desk, I took out my debit card to pay. The staff informed me I had insufficient funds. I apologized and then used the $10,000 relocation allowance the major corporation abroad had transfer moneyed me to pay. After dropping my suitcase/luggage in the hotel room, I checked my bank statement. I found that the money in my card was gone. The payment history showed various romantic restaurants and suites and luxury stores. Robert had never had any couple's expenses with me or bought me things. It was obvious who these expenses were with. Just then, the HR department sent me a message. Sarah, if you're in a hurry, you can go find Mr. Hui yourself tomorrow morning to sign. I replied with an okay. I slept soundly that night. The next morning, as I passed the HR department, I saw Robert's tall, upright back. The HR department employee was busy onboarding Victoria, saying flatteringly, Miss Victoria, Mr. Hua is so good to you. You two are perfect together. Victoria looked smug, wearing a vice president employee badge on her chest. Robert, you directly appointed me as vice president. Won't people say I got the job through connections? I remember Sarah was with you for 7 years and was just a team lead. Robert didn't mind, tucking Victoria's loose hair behind her ear. You're my wife. Who would dare say anything? Or, are you unwilling to use my connections? They looked like a loving newlywed couple. Since I ran into Robert, it saved me a trip. I handed him my resignation letter. Mr. Hua, please sign this. Robert's eyes lit up when he saw me, and he slowly took the letter. His gaze swept over the resignation letter, and he sneered with some disappointment. Quitting in protest, pretending to have backbone? Don't forget your grandmother was in poor health with many underlying conditions. With your meager savings, you'll be starving in no time. Victoria looked smug. That's right, Sarah, don't compromise your grandmother's retirement just to be stubborn for a moment. The uninformed HR department employee added, but, Mr. Hua, Sarah's grandmother passed away. She took leave recently. Robert froze instantly, his fingertips trembling as he held the resignation letter. He looked at my calm expression and suddenly felt guilty. Why didn't you tell me? Seeing his evasive gaze, I suddenly remembered years ago when Robert simply chopped wood and cooked for my grandmother, his handsome face blackened by smoke, yet smiling broadly at me with his white teeth. I also remembered my grandmother before she passed, holding my hand with tears in her eyes and saying, "Child, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have pushed you and Robert together." The piercing pain still lingered. I said coldly, "Mr. Hua, it's a personal matter. Do I need to report it to you?" Victoria frowned, about to scold me. The next second, Robert suddenly pulled me out of the HR department. My wrist was red from his grip, but I could feel him trembling. I winced. He suddenly let go, then placed the resignation letter back in my hand, showing rare weakness. "Sarah, don't be impulsive. Wait for me, we'll talk properly after work, okay?" Just then, Victoria suddenly opened the door. "Robert, Dad just called and said he needed you for something. Answer him." Robert turned around in a hurry, looking somewhat like he was fleeing in panic. I shook my head and was about to leave, but Victoria stuck out her foot to block me. "Sarah, please hurry up and clear out your office. I need to move in." The vice president's office was not the same as the team lead's. I knew she was deliberately trying to push me out. But it didn't matter, I was leaving anyway, and there were indeed some things I needed to pack. As soon as I finished packing my belongings, there was a knock on the office door. Opening it, an auction house employee stood there holding an exquisite gift box, saying flatteringly, "Are you Mr. Robert's loved one? This is a bracelet Mr. Hua won for you at an auction recently. Please try it on." I froze. What was this, a breakup gift? The crowd didn't hear the employee clearly, only seeing the Bulgari logo on the gift box, they whispered to each other. "This is Bulgari, the cheapest one costs at least $100,000. No wonder Sarah is quitting, she must have found a rich patron." Before I could say anything, the auction house employee had already taken out the bracelet and asked me to hold out my hand. Just as the chain was about to be fastened. "Sarah, I know your family is poor, but I never thought you would try to steal my bracelet by claiming it's for me. I am Robert's loved one, aren't you going too far?" Victoria had found her way over somehow, snatched the bracelet off my wrist, and looked at me disdainfully. Hearing this, the auction house employee was terrified and quickly apologized. Victoria waved her hand dismissively and then said insincerely to "Never mind, Sarah, you're not from a wealthy family, you probably haven't seen nice things before, and it's understandable to be tempted, but the company can't tolerate sticky fingers/petty theft like this." I just touched the red mark left on my wrist when the bracelet was yanked off and gave a self-mocking smile. I knew it. Robert wouldn't be so generous to me. Seeing this, the crowd urged Victoria to put on the bracelet. "Miss Victoria, Mr. Hua is so good to you, he's completely devoted to his wife. That Sarah is as thick-skinned as a city wall, she actually has the nerve to impersonate you. I say we don't need to be polite to her, just kick her out." I gave a self-mocking smile and turned to pick up the cardboard box to leave. Then I heard Robert's voice asking, "Sarah, what's going on?" The crowd spoke up for Victoria. "Mr. Hua, Sarah has sticky fingers/petty theft, she's even trying to steal from Ms. Victoria right in front of you. Look at this bracelet, it's worth at least $100,000. Should we call the police and have her arrested? Yeah, a vain gold digger like Sarah doesn't deserve to be in our company." Victoria smiled sweetly, deliberately displaying the bracelet on her hand, and said gently, "Don't listen to them, Robert, I love the gift you gave me." Robert's face instantly darkened. I lowered my gaze, waiting for Robert to call me vain, call me a greedy opportunist. But he spoke sharply to Victoria, "Take it off. Take it off." These 3 words made everyone present show looks of astonishment, not daring to breathe. Their gazes shifted between me, Robert, and Victoria. They never dreamed that Robert would ask his wife to take off the bracelet at that moment. This was undoubtedly a slap in Victoria's face. Even I looked at Robert twice. Seeing that his expression was serious and not feigned, I couldn't help but feel confused. Victoria, who had a faint smile on her face moments ago, turned pale. She suddenly shot me a fierce glare. but under robe. RT's somewhat sharp gaze, she could only raise the hand wearing the bracelet and rub the chain with the other hand. Seeing her hesitate and not take it off, Robert repeated impassively, "Take the bracelet off and give it back to Sarah." The word back made the crowd even more shocked. Could it be that they had been misled by Victoria and misunderstood Sarah? This time, Victoria didn't hesitate, quickly took off the bracelet, threw it into the gift box, and rushed to salvage the situation. Victoria shrugged and spread her hands, pretending not to care. "Prince, the auction house employee just brought it over. I didn't steal it from her." If it were the old Robert, hearing the word prince would have melted his heart, and he would believe whatever Victoria said. But this time, Robert seemed a little cautious as he handed the bracelet to me, saying guiltily, "Sarah, I specifically won this for you." "I'm sorry, someone else wore it first." Sensing the piercing gazes of the crowd, he came to his senses and quickly made an excuse. Robert clenched his fist and cleared his throat slightly. "You've been a long-term employee who's been with me for many years. This is your year-end bonus from me." I gave a self-mocking smile. No matter what, in Robert's heart, other people's opinions were always the most important. I just picked up the cardboard box I had packed and said indifferently, "Mr. Hua, no need. Although I've been with you these years, we don't have any personal relationship. I can't accept such an expensive gift." Robert's face changed dramatically when he saw me pick up the box, probably thinking I was leaving right now. He frantically grabbed my arm. "Sarah, I haven't approved your resignation letter, how can you leave?" Victoria gently held Robert's other hand and softly reminded him, "Robert, I know you value talent, but Sarah has made up her mind. We can't force her to stay. Everyone is watching. Calm down." Robert's grip on my arm lessened. His eyes showed struggle, and finally, he said softly to me, "Sarah, didn't we agree? We'll talk properly after work." My brows furrowed. Seeing him like this, I truly didn't understand what he meant. I wasn't conceited enough to think he still had feelings for me and couldn't bear for me to leave. Most likely, he still wanted to have both women and enjoy the benefits. But I was sober now and didn't want to be his casual fallback option anymore. So, I put down the cardboard box and took out the resignation letter again. "Mr. Hua, Ms. Victoria is right. Please sign it quickly. I'm not very suitable for the company anymore." Victoria urged, "Yes, Robert, listen to Sarah. You can't force a twisted melon to be sweet." But Robert was unexpectedly angered. His eyes blazed with fire, looking as if he had been insulted. The next second, he snatched the resignation letter from my hand, tore it to shreds, and said word by word, "Sarah, fine, your plan worked. I admit it, you are my girlfriend. Please stay, okay?" Hearing this, the crowd was even more shocked. After all, in their eyes, I had always been a person of poor character, a persistent annoyance clinging to Robert. I gave a sarcastic smile. "Mr. Hua, stop joking. It was Ms. Victoria who got married, legally, to you, and it was Ms. Victoria who got engaged to you." Saying this, how does Ms. Victoria feel? Victoria's face was indeed incredibly pale. For some reason, I actually felt a sense of satisfaction. Before, I had only watched Victoria flaunt herself in front of me, making me feel like I had a bone stuck in my throat. Now, it was finally her turn to taste that feeling. Robert's expression was also exceptionally bad. He suddenly laughed. "Sarah, where else can you go without me? You're over 30. What other company would want you? Or are you saying you found another man?" I looked at the clock in the office. With all this fuss, it was already 11 o'clock. If we argued any longer, I would miss my plane. So I delivered my ultimatum. "Mr. Hua, I originally wanted to part on good terms, but if you insist on not letting me resign, then I can only hire a lawyer and sue for wrongful termination." Robert's face immediately showed disbelief. He never expected that I would be so resolute in leaving. Behind him, a dignified and stern voice sounded. "Who wants to sue for wrongful termination?" Robert turned around, but his body trembled. Like a cat seeing a tiger, he instinctively called out respectfully, "Dad, why are you here?" Robert inherited his father's genes, the two were 7 parts alike. George Hua was well preserved, dressed in a suit, looking only in his 40s, but the fine lines at the corners of his eyes and mouth betrayed his true age. Hearing Robert's address, George Hua's frown deepened with displeasure. "Do I still need to tell you what to call me at the company?" Robert pursed his lips and immediately became as obedient as a quail, saying, "Chairman Hua." Victoria's lips curved upward, and she flirted while holding George Hua's arm, saying with a smile, "Dad, why did you come to the company?" George Hua's expression softened, and he responded with a smile, "When I called just now, I felt Robert's state was off. I thought something happened with your appointment as vice president, so of course, I had to come and check. Victoria immediately seized the opportunity and laughed. Dad, I knew you were the best to me. I knew Victoria was deliberately showing affection to George Hua to declare her status, directly telling me that she was Robert's wife and the mistress of the company. The people around completely ignored me and flattered George Hua. Hearing about it is not as good as seeing it in person. Chairman Hua is truly decisive, making it hard to live up to his standards. I curved my lips into a sarcastic smile. I continued to pick up my cardboard box and walk out. Young lady, wait. George Hua suddenly called out to me. His demeanor was authoritative, his gaze sharp, and he said coldly, you didn't give a month's notice for your resignation. Even if you sue for wrongful termination, you won't get much. I interrupted him with a bitter smile. Chairman Hua, you misunderstood. I'm not trying to rip you off. I just want to resign quickly. I don't want anything. George Hua paused, then turned to look at Robert. Robert lowered his head, looking guilty. As if thinking of something, George Hua curved his lips into a smile, looking very magnanimous. Why didn't you say so earlier? Robert only recently took over the company and can be a bit clumsy. I'll make the decision, you can leave now. Robert suddenly looked up, unable to help but plead, Dad, don't let her leave. Seeing this, George Hua's expression completely turned cold, and he said sternly, this matter is decided. Everyone disperse and get back to work. His chest rose and fell a few times, but he still called out to me. Young lady, come here for a moment. It won't take long. Since the resignation was settled, I didn't want to defy him, so I followed him into the conference room. Robert and Victoria also followed. Robert's face showed joy. Dad, are you? But the next second, George Hua kicked him in the back of the knee, making him fall directly to the ground. I heard a crisp thud. Robert clutched his knee, his face pale, sweat dripping, but he didn't dare to utter a word of defiance. George Hua sternly reprimanded, Robert, are you crazy? You cried and begged me before, threatening to kill yourself to force me to let Victoria return and marry you. Now that you've married Victoria as you wished, you're getting involved with someone else again. You're playing hard to get. He pushed Robert and scolded, apologized to Victoria and promised never to do it again. Otherwise, family punishment. I gave a self-mocking smile. So, during the 7 years I was with him, Robert never for a moment gave up the idea of being with Victoria. From beginning to end, I was just a paw. Time for him. Victoria still insincerely tried to help Robert up, constantly persuading him, Dad, it's okay. It's all my fault for coming back too late. Robert will settle down in the future. But Robert just said with trembling lips, it's not like that, Dad, Sarah has been with me for 7 years, His words were incoherent, making no sense. For a moment, perhaps even he didn't understand the reason for his stubbornness today. He was finally legitimately with the person he had longed for, so why wasn't he satisfied? Looking at the scene before me, my heart was unexpectedly calm. I knew George Hua was putting on this show in front of me not to act like a strict father disciplining his wayward son. Sure enough, the next second, George Hua took out a checkbook, signed a number, and handed it to me. He tilted his head slightly, looking very arrogant. Stop playing hard to get. Take the money and leave my son. Go as far away as possible, and never come back. Robert was instantly stunned. I silently counted the zeros on the check. $5 million. A full $5 million. How wonderful it would have been if I had this money when grandmother was gravely ill. But it was too late. I gently took the check. Robert's gaze dimmed inch by inch, as if he had lost all his strength. But I simply tore the check in half, placed it on the table, and said indifferently, Chairman Hua, no need. I've already bought a plane ticket abroad. I'm leaving today and will never come back. George Hua showed a look of surprise, but quickly composed himself and nodded. He took out his phone and did something. My phone received a system notification. I was already in a resigned state. When I went out again, everyone's gazes instinctively gathered on me. George Hua forcibly held Robert and said with a formulaic smile, Robert and Victoria are having a little tiff lately. If he said anything strange, I hope you all won't spread it around. It's all a misunderstanding. Everyone showed thoughtful expressions and indicated they understood. Seizing this opportunity, I went downstairs, grabbed my suitcase/luggage, and took a cab to the airport. When I arrived at the airport, there were 10 minutes left before boarding. I breathed a sigh of relief. Although I wasted some time, things were finally going according to plan. But then, my phone was bombarded with calls from Robert. I hung up, but he kept calling, sounding very anxious. But I simply blocked him. The next second, he started text messaging me. Where are you? Which airport? Which flight? I'm coming to find you now. Don't move, wait for me. I felt baffled, even a little annoyed. So I moved my fingers and sent a text message, Robert, we're over. Then I blocked him. After waiting a little longer at the airport, the boarding announcement was made. There were many people on this flight. I dragged my suitcase/luggage and lined up behind them. Just as I was about to pass through the gate, there was a gasp from behind me. I subconsciously looked where everyone was staring. Then, a tall figure grabbed me in a hug. Robert held me tightly, as if wanting to merge me into his flesh and blood, making my shoulder blades hurt. He seemed to have run in a hurry, gasping for breath. Looking up at me, he smiled happily. Sarah, let's elope. His face was flushed from running, and his suit was wrinkled. In the deep winter, he was emanating cold, but his features were still handsome and attractive. The face I used to never get tired of looking at, now holding me, felt so nauseating. I frowned, pushed him away, and tried to keep my voice low. Robert, get a grip. You have a wife, a career. Stop making a scene. Robert was already adrenaline-fueled and held me tightly again, clinging like an octopus, flirting. No. Sarah, I don't want Victoria, I don't want the company, and I don't want any family fortune anymore. Let's elope, go somewhere my dad can't find us. The crowd, not knowing what was going on, thought we were a couple about to be separated by distance, showing knowing smiles. Young lady, your boyfriend can't bear to part with you. Why not take him with you? That's right, career is important, but love is too. Good men like this are rare nowadays. Hearing this, Robert's ears turned slightly red, and his voice was even lower. Sarah, don't you know, when you left, I was so scared. I almost thought I would never see you again in this life. His sweet words were moving. If it were the old me, I might have been incredibly touched. But now, I said calmly, aren't you afraid of your father? He has powerful connections. What will you do if he finds you? Robert shrieked defensively, don't mention him. He's a lunatic. He married a gold digger himself and blames it on me. If he hadn't brainwashed me, saying no one loved me, that they only loved my money, how could I have lost you? Saying this, he took out a black card and offered it to me like a treasure. Here, I actually wanted to give it to you a long time ago. Sarah, I'll have no reservations with you from now on. Will you give me another chance to love you? I knew Robert's madness today was a result of years of oppression from his controlling father, finally erupting. I had tried to heal him for so many years, but ultimately failed to help him overcome his inner demons and open up to me. Shaking my head, I sighed, tucked the black card into his pocket, then took out my phone to call the police. Just then, another group of people entered the airport. George was in the lead, followed by Victoria. Behind them were a dozen security guards, glaring at Robert. Robert had been holding me tightly at first, but George only gave him a look and crooked his finger. He trembled and obediently walked over. George showed me a smile devoid of warmth. Sarah, Robert is spoiled by me. Please don't mind. I hope you have a pleasant trip abroad. I knew George was hinting that I should never come back. Looking at Rob RT, who was obediently lowering his head and being led by Victoria, I suddenly felt he was quite pathetic. His rebellion was so powerless in front of George. Goodbye, Robert. Turning around, I passed through the gate and boarded the plane abroad. In my suitcase/luggage was my grandmother's ashes. Looking at the city I had lived in for over 30 years, I waved goodbye. Gently stroking my suitcase/luggage, I seemed to hear my grandmother say, wherever my child is, that's my home. After landing, the HR department greeted me warmly and found me a superbly located cemetery plot to bury my grandmother. The CEO even offered me a salary of $500,000 a year. This CEO had worked her way up through her own ability and was highly reputable in the industry. She looked at me and smiled. Sarah, when I saw you at the gala 3 years ago, I knew you would join my team someday. I nodded and threw myself into my work. I saw Robert again half a year later. He was wearing a well-tailored suit and walked out of the conference room with the CEO, Ada, a look of confidence on his face. Seeing me, Robert smiled slightly. Why, Ms. Lin, do you look surprised? I'm here to sign a contract this time, a big order worth $25 million. Ada smiled and asked me to entertain Robert. I frowned hard and asked Robert what he was doing there. Robert smiled slightly and pushed a contract towards me. I said impatiently, this isn't my responsibility. Robert laughed, stuffing a pen into my hand as if asking for praise, and whispered like a lover, Sarah, take a good look. I looked up, stunned. The name on the contract was Company Transfer Agreement. I sprang up from the chair. Robert smiled, a smile that sent chills down my spine. He hugged me, as if very happy. You don't know how hard I've endured for the past 6 months, acting like husband and wife with Victoria to completely overthrow my dad. Sarah, now I'm handing over the company to you. Do you understand my sincerity now? I just though. Robert was insane. I tore up the contract and said sharply, Robert, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Please, stop ruining my peaceful life. Because of this, I was clearly preoccupied when I got off work and went home, until a sharp siren suddenly blared in my ears. The next second, I was pushed to the ground. The world became blurry, and my ears rang with noise. After a long while, my senses returned to normal. I blinked and realized there had been a car accident nearby. Lying in a pool of blood was a tall, dark-haired man. His features were soaked in blood, but I recognized him instantly. Robert. The ringing in my ears grew louder. I stumbled over and checked for his breath. Although weak, it was still there. Fortunately, there was a hospital not far from this street, and the ambulance arrived quickly. The police also came to take a statement. They told me the driver was drunk and had veered onto the sidewalk, and Robert had pushed me away but was hit himself. In the hospital, Robert's lips were pale, and his head was wrapped in thick gauze. The doctor said Robert was lucky, only suffering a mild concussion and extreme fatigue, and would be fine after some rest. Out of humanitarian concern, I could only take time off work to care for Robert until he woke up. To be honest, he saved my life, and no one wouldn't be moved by his actions. But after he did so much to pursue Victoria and finally got together with her, why did he go to such lengths to find me again? As I was pondering, his eyelashes trembled, and he woke up. Before I could say anything, he grabbed my hand. Sarah, I've already divorced Victoria, the news just hasn't broken yet. Don't hide from me. Because of the emotional fluctuation, he had a splitting headache and closed his eyes tightly. But his hand still held mine firmly, as if afraid I would run away. I found it amusing and asked him in return, Robert, do you treat marriage as a child's game? After saying this, I placed his hand back under the blanket. In his panicked expression, I explained, I'll go find the doctor to check on you. He finally relaxed, looking at me with pitiful, puppy dog eyes. But I didn't go find the doctor. After leaving the room, I contacted Victoria directly. As soon as she answered the phone, I heard her grinding her teeth. Sarah, are you trying to show off to me? Don't think that just because Robert is attracted to your playing hard to get tactics now, you can become Mrs. Hua. You wish. How ironic. Did she think everyone was after the title of Mrs. Hua like her? I simply said, Robert was in a car accident. You should come and pick him up. After saying this, I went to find the doctor. The doctor told me Robert was recovering well and could be discharged in 2 days. Robert pouted, looking a bit unhappy. If I get better, Sarah, will you stop taking care of me? Now that you've finally become like before, being nice to me, I don't want to be discharged. I wish the car had just hit me and paralyzed me. Hearing his deranged words, I only found it absurd. While he used to throw tantrums, he was a 30-year-old man now. How could he still be so childish? I peeled an orange and handed it to him. Stop with the morbid talk. If you were paralyzed, your dad wouldn't let me off the hook. He seemed disappointed, peeling the orange with his fingers and putting it on the table as if sulking. I didn't react, just picked up my briefcase and said coldly, Victoria will come to pick you up tonight. I'm going to work now. Saying that, I turned and left. I heard Robert shouting my name angrily behind me, calling me heartless. Victoria was quite decisive. That evening, I went to the hospital to hand over care to her. But as soon as I entered the room, she slapped me across the face, her eyes bloodshot. Sarah, nothing good happens when you're near Robert. Why are you always lingering around like a persistent annoyance? Looking at Robert's nervous expression as he turned over and got out of bed to stand in front of me, then looking at the indignant Victoria, I curved my lips into a sarcastic smile. Were they performing a drama for me, showcasing deep affection? A reunion story might be nice, but I didn't want to be the second female lead or a backup. I kicked Victoria in the abdomen, threw Robert's medical chart at her, and said coldly, Victoria, manage your own husband. I thought that after Victoria took Robert back, he would soon lose interest in me, get used to my absence, and stop looking for me. But he was at my company building every day, waiting. Victoria even brought him hot coffee to warm his hands. It had become a strange spectacle. Today was even more absurd. A stretch limo was parked downstairs. George had actually come, and Robert was stubbornly refusing to leave. This drew continuous stares from passers-by. The CEO, Ada, saw this and laughed heartily, asking me to handle it so it wouldn't affect the company's image. I was speechless. I went downstairs and walked up to Robert. The cold wind was biting. Robert pushed his father away, rubbed his cold fingers, and asked somewhat hopefully, "Sarah, have you forgiven me?" I just said, "Chairman Hua is here. You should go back with him." Robert's face instantly fell. George Hua's dark eyes were deep and profound, and he threatened in a flat tone, "Robert, do you really think I'm that easy to overthrow? If you don't want the company, just stay here, and I'll find someone else to manage it." Hearing this, Victoria instantly panicked and pulled Robert's sleeve, pleading, "Robert, look how long it's been, you should go back. Sarah isn't worth this." A flicker of hesitation crossed Robert's eyes. He glanced at me, but still stubbornly retorted, "If you don't give it to me, I don't want any family fortune. I just want to be with Sarah. Sarah isn't like my mother, she won't look down on me whether I'm poor or rich." This sentence struck a nerve with George Hua. Years ago, George Hua had misjudged people and fallen for a gold digger, who later cheated on him and even drugged him and his son, almost killing them. It was the first time I saw the usually calm and elegant George Hua show a ferocious expression. He sneered, "Fine, don't regret it. Victoria, come with me." "Ignore him." Victoria hesitated for a moment, then followed George Hua. Looking at Robert, left standing there alone, I felt like I had a splitting headache. George Hua was true to his word and froze all of Robert's debit cards. Robert had no choice but to sell off his luxury items. Since his English wasn't very good, he could only do basic labor. Washing dishes. Seeing the growing number of severely chapped hands on his hands, making them increasingly difficult to bend, I repeatedly tried to persuade him, telling him I no longer loved him and he should return to the country soon. But he misunderstood, his face full of sweetness. "I know, you're doing this for my own good. It's okay, I don't feel it's hard work. I want to fight. I'm my dad's only child, he'll definitely give in. Then you can come back with me, and I'll transfer my entire fortune to you, okay?" I have to say, he was truly delusional. The old me was willing to tolerate everything about him, like taking care of a child. Only now did I realize how selfish and terrifying this man-child was. By now, I felt I had done my duty. I stopped interfering with Robert's life and focused on my work. Because of my outstanding performance, Ada directly promoted me to vice president, with a salary of $2 million a year. Everyone in the company congratulated me. On the day of my promotion, Robert was waiting for me downstairs. He carefully and somewhat nervously presented me with a necklace, specifically saying, "Sarah, congratulations on your promotion. I bought this for you with a month's salary. Try it on?" I gently accepted it. Robert's eyes brightened inch by inch, a smile he couldn't contain on his lips. Then, I turned and bet a passing colleague, asking, "Want to buy this tie for $50? The colleague laughed, "This brand isn't cheap. Are you really selling it to me?" I nodded. Then I exchanged the money and the tie with the colleague. Robert's face turned pale as he watched this scene. How could you?" I chuckled softly. "Robert, this is how you treated me for 7 years, isn't it? Do you think we could ever have a future together?" Robert stared deeply at me, as if rooted to the spot. The next day, I heard the news of his return from the restaurant where he worked. Shortly after, news broke domestically about his divorce. However, he was never linked to any scandals again, becoming a wealthy bachelor whom everyone in the industry wanted to curry favor with. And our lives gradually became parallel lines that never intersected again.